area, right off of I-70 and Monaco, the exit to Monaco right there. The lower portion of the boundary map, which was provided to us from Tiffany, as well as all the other information. The bottom portion of the map is actually Denver, which Commerce City actually has us stay out of. With all the other licenses that we've done, we've never gone into the Denver territory. So we went ahead and made our focus starting right at the area, and then we worked our way out in all directions, obtaining any sort of feedback. Our survey dates included Monday, November 2nd, Wednesday, November 4th, and Thursday, November 5th. The reason we went back so many times for coverage is most managers and owners presently at this time, if they can work from their house, they've been doing so. So some of the facilities that we went to go visit, if they did not have an owner or manager, I actually logged that down and went back to those areas to obtain any sort of feedback. The process that we have is we actually carry our petition packets. We have a map. And the petition packets actually have the hearing information, the new application that is being applied for, who is applying for it, the corporate name, any information. We did visit with John. I did visit with John to go ahead and the owner to kind of get their concept, what exactly they're going to be doing with the building, any sort of concerns they have. We do carry his phone number and email around, and on the petition packets is actually the contact number for the city should anybody have any questions. We carry both the business and residential packets with us. With the business, we actually state, have it off to the side where they have to identify themselves as an owner or manager of that particular license or particular business that we're obtaining feedback from. So we went ahead and made attempted contacts with 110 businesses in the area. None of the residential up top. We did try going up in that area. To actually drive all the way around there is almost 2 miles drive. So to cross that highway, there's no direct link right there to cross that major road right there. So to be able to drive down and then come up and all the way around is quite a jaunt. So we did try and make a little bit of attempt up there, but focus mainly in and around the area. Of those results, we were able to obtain 49 signatures in that area, 29 that were in favor at 59%, and 20 that were opposed. Also on our packets, we actually have folks that we ask them to write in maybe why they are in favor or opposed to this particular license in this area. A couple of folks in favor said, once again, that they had already spoke with the owner, that it was pertinent. They understood about, they liked the fact that he was bringing in the security system, all of that good stuff. But 19 of them actually just went ahead and didn't want to provide a reason. What we did do with those that expressed more concern, we allowed them to take the first page of our packet, make a copy of that along with the map. I handed out several of those. So they did have the hearing information. Whenever there's an opposition, we do not guarantee results for the client. We simply provide the survey and obtain any sort of feedback. So any of those folks that are opposed that want to express concern, whether in favor or opposed, we kindly invite them to the hearing so that they can do so. With this particular location right here, we the results that we have, given the other licenses that we've done in here, this actually shows 59%, which is not overwhelming, but it does show a favor. So we've had percentages of lower percentages that were accepted in the neighborhood. So given the fact that this is the only retail marijuana license in this area, I still feel that this reflects a positive need and desire for this particular license in this area.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Gerritsen. All right, so just to kind of wrap all that up, I'd like to address a few things. First of all, in terms of opposition versus support, we did email Tiffany about any letters or emails of opposition that they have received prior to the hearing. Excuse me. And she indicated that they have not yet received any in opposition. As the officer will note, we submitted a few petitions in support, and there was almost a 60% support rate when the surveyor went around and did everything. So I think based on those things, there is some significant support for another store, especially in this area. I would also note that this area is this location is in the middle of a pretty dense urban area. It's, right on the border of Denver and Commerce City. So you're talking about two huge population centers. Obviously, Commerce City has its own fairly large population, but the population of Denver could also make use of this. It's right at the intersection of I-70 and 270. As the officer probably knows, there's significant traffic through there almost every day. There's pretty much a traffic jam there all the time. We have received approval from the state, so we do have a state license for kind commerce and all the requirements that the state has, including the background check and care investigation of Mr. Diet, have been approved by the state, so that's taken care of. I would note that marijuana is, while legal in Colorado, is still somewhat a controversial subject, so you will always have a fair amount or at least some opposition. But in this case, I have done quite a few hearings for dispensaries in the past, and we have seen very little opposition compared to other stores that we've done in the past. So I would also note that our application submitted for Kind Commerce LLC thus far meets all the requirements under the Commerce City Municipal Code, and it met all the state requirements. As I said, the state license has been granted. The application was complete. Everything we needed to turn in was there. All fees have been paid. I believe in that packet, you also see that the zoning has been approved by Commerce City. And I also believe we submitted a building permit application. As far as this particular company's ability to do business, I would note to the officer and to the city that we do have two existing stores. One has been opened in the city of Parachute on the western slope for about 3.5 years now, or 3 years. And we also have another one in Nederland, Colorado, up in the mountains in Boulder, that has been open for a couple months. And we have a couple other pending stores. So we plan to have the managers and the existing employees from those stores come and train new employees that we're going to source from Commerce City and the surrounding area, and basically teach them how to do everything. But I would just note that in terms of teaching them how to do it correctly, the two stores we have never had a violation in the years that they've been working. And so I would submit to the city that we at least know how to run a store at this point, and we will have people train employees on the same kind of techniques and plans that we've used up to this point. As for the need for marijuana stores, I would note that the marijuana sales overall in the state of Colorado continue to increase every year, and that every license for a dispensary that has been issued in Commerce City that I know of is still in business. So I think that supports the idea that there is a demand in the community for an additional store. If there was a lack of demand, maybe sales would have gone down, or potentially one of those stores would have went out of business. But as far as I know, every store that has been licensed and opened is still in business. And so I think that supports a general demand in the community for an additional marijuana store. I'd also like to note that in areas like this, we make it a point to always have a employee on hand who speaks Spanish. I do know that as far as population, there is a extensive Spanish-speaking population in Commerce City, and I don't know about the other stores in Commerce City, but generally there is an underserved market for employees who can speak Spanish, and thus counsel or tell Spanish-speaking customers, what they're getting into, what kind of products they're buying, basically just guide them through the process of using marijuana. So we always make it a point to have at least one employee on hand who can speak both English and Spanish, and we will definitely do that at the Commerce City location. As far as good moral character, Mr. Diet's background has been investigated numerous times by numerous cities. Like I said, he owns stores in Parachute and Nederland, and they have all basically looked into his background and decided he's got good moral character. So I would submit that he does, and Commerce City will find the same thing. We're entitled to possession of this premises by virtue of a lease, which I believe has been submitted to the city. comment on. Mr. Dyatt, was there anything else from you?
I think that's it, really. I'll just add that it does meet additionally all the setbacks. We had submitted some area maps that depict the proximity to the nearest setbacks, where we're well beyond the 1,000-foot separation buffer to any of those setback required locations that's identified in the code, and so we well exceed every setback that was established, whether it's time to change, community corrections. We're well over the setback for that one. There's another one here, Serenity Residential Treatment Facility, which is 1,570 feet away, required to be 1,000 feet away. So we're significantly more than any setback buffer, requirement that has been imposed. So I just wanted to point that out, but I believe that's it. Yep. We thank you for your time on it.
All right. Mr. McGarvey, I've got a bunch of questions for your client, so I'm just going to ask Mrs. Dyatt, this is the hearing officer. There hasn't been an explanation of kind of the nature of the business. I understand it's a retail sales application, but explain to me how you run your business, what you do, what the setup is, if you would, please.
Sure. We have partnerships with the top cultivators throughout the state. We're actually establishing an additional partnership as we speak right now for some greenhouse operation that we're creating together. And so we've got multiple operations in the works for growing facilities that have all been in compliance for many years. Retail is our focus, so we're not involved in the medical side. We're not manufacturing any products, and this site itself is only retail. So there'll only be retail sales that occur at this site. Flower product that we buy, we're very strict on fertilizers. We shoot for an organic product, and that's something that differentiates us compared to a lot of competitors. We're very strict on chemical use and all of that. So our partners are aggressive on organic use, but concentrated flower products themselves, everything's in compliance with state regulations. The oversight from our staff, they go through all proper training that they need to on a responsible vendor basis, as well as our own internal procedures for compliance, and ensuring that that customers are handled appropriately. We have 2 ID checkpoints, which is not common at all stores. There are many that have that, but certainly not all of them, where we have a secure lobby that customers can walk into, the lobby area. They would have, that would be where the first checkpoint is, their ID checkpoint. From that point, the receptionist will allow each person one at a time back into the retail sales area, which is a restricted access area that customers will enter. Once they go to the sales counter, they'll be required to show their ID a second time at that point of sale. And so the whole process is in direct compliance with the Marijuana Enforcement Division, and we certainly will be getting our final approval before we open the business, to operate. But any other questions, I'd be happy to answer.
And the premises is completely built out at this point, is that right?
There is no build out that's actually required. We actually were going to, we were looking at, the building permit that Trevor had mentioned, but it was determined that we didn't actually need to submit a building permit because we weren't going to do any changes to it. The layout of it does fit us nicely, with having some office space and the front lobby space. And so there is no build out that we'll need for this location now. So we won't be pursuing the building permit.
And when do you anticipate you'll be ready to open the doors in the event the application's granted?
January.
All right.
By mid-January is our goal.
The floor plan that I have before me, which is a copy of what was submitted, everything is in place as it's listed on that floor plan at this point? Are there interior modifications even though there's no building permit required?
No, there aren't. No. So we're going to be utilizing the space as is without needing to do any kind of modification of premises.
It's not modification necessarily. There's probably going to be some finish work needed though.
Well, and I'm thinking about, the doorways are secure and storage areas are established as they're indicated on the floor plan. Is all of that done at this point?
Right,
I
that's
believe
correct.
they need to bring a safe. Well, John, I think you need to bring a safe in and everything, but other than that,
Right. Yeah. So we'd have to bring in glass display cabinets just to clarify of where the sales counter would be. I mean, these are just sort of cosmetic type, additional items, but the safe, security equipment, of course, that would need to be installed, conditional on this approval. But and we would change out the doors, for reinforced doors.
Okay.
But that's it. I mean, just minor stuff we're talking here, really
And then
small.
I assume you'll need to get the security system in place and operating. Is that right?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
Let's see. So explain where the product will be stored pursuant to the diagram.
The product will be stored in the product handling and storage room, which is, when you're looking at the diagram, it's at the bottom center of the diagram, and
All right.
it's got its separate room there. Yep,
And that's a secure room.
it is. Yep.
How is
It's
it
a
that
secure-
employees have access to the secure areas via just a badge?
with the key fob
Okay.
to buzz themselves in and out. Yep.
All right. And for someone to come into the lobby, get the ID check, and then go down that hallway kind of in the center of the diagram into the secure restricted access area, they're just directed down that hallway. Is that right? Is there an employee at that
There's-
secure door?
Yeah, there's going to be an employee in the lobby that's there all the time. That's keeping the entryway guarded essentially, and is overlooking the lobby, checking those IDs, and then coordinating the traffic in and out going down that hallway you reference into the retail area.
So if I'm a customer and I've shown my ID in the lobby and then I'm directed into the secure area, that door, it looks like there's I think it's number 36, it looks like maybe, into the secure area. Is that open? Is there an employee there letting me in through that secure door?
The receptionist will buzz that door for them to open. So
Okay.
that's going to be at that person's discretion of when they see somebody going in, they'll buzz that door for them to go into that, into the facility.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Tell me about the days and hours of operation.
Sure. We're currently operating. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, Mr. McGarvey, I'm going to have you just mute your mic if you would, just while he's chatting or answering these questions. That's helpful. Thank you, sir. All right, go ahead.
Okay. So the store would be open Monday through Sunday, 8 a.m. until 10 p.m. It works out well, especially on the weekends, as the retail marijuana store does, do better on the weekends. And all of our neighbors almost all of them might be in and out for a few minutes or here and there, but for the most part, they're closed. Their formal hours are certainly closed on the weekends. And so it actually works in quite well with this location, with the huge parking lot. But the hours of operation, it's 8 a.m. till 10 p.m. Monday through Sunday. And there's also going to be floodlights that are motion detection floodlights that will be installed around the building, which everybody's happy about. All the neighbors are thrilled about it, frankly. And to where, if there is any motion that takes place after those hours, they'll be activated, but not to cause a nuisance light, with any kind of light littering, where it would be directed, to the property itself and won't leave that property line, and will light up if there's any, any motion that's detected. But I'm happy to answer any other questions.
I've got a whole list of them actually,
Okay.
just because I want detailed information about kind of the operation of the business.
Right. Okay,
So you are the sole owner of the LLC, is that correct?
that's correct. Yep.
And the retail store in Parachute, you're the sole owner of the license, or that, is that the same, it's the same LLC?
It's so all of the stores are owned by Kind Castle Colorado LLC, and I'm the sole owner of Kind Castle Colorado LLC.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
And describe on the record the training experience that you've had in the sale of marijuana.
I've been doing this now for consulting wise for almost 5 years. Been involved in the Parachute store for 3 years. I do the vast majority of these applications myself. I dive into all the codes and everything myself, and so I've been writing procedures now for a number of years. I read all of the med regulations. I read all the local ordinances. We like to check for updates on ordinances on a local level, to where we stay involved to implement any changes, especially right now with Corona, the COVID-19 situation that's taking place. We're making sure that we're following any regulations that come out. But I'm on top of the regulations, and I'm constantly having to, ensure that anything that new that does that is initiated is enforced in our business.
Thank you. Tell me what your employees will be doing in terms of ID checks.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So we have a program called the NUG, where the program can scan their IDs, make sure that it's a valid ID. We do check to make sure that the IDs are not expired, and of course, whether they're out of state or in state. And the ID is checked once the customer comes into the lobby from that receptionist. Once they're buzzed back into the retail sales area, the bud tender or lead bud tender that happened to be working behind the counter would take that person's ID again at the point of sale to double check their ID. And I think maybe because we've been excessively careful about this for so long is the reason why we've never had an issue. We've had our neighboring competitors in Parachute. They all have had issues with med violations over the years, but we haven't had one. And maybe I'm just, anal about the compliance, but it's everything's on the line in this industry if we're not on point for compliance. So it's absolutely essential that we're obsessed with compliance, and we have the second checkpoint for that reason, just to ensure that we never have any issues with underage, customers trying to come into the store. And so we've never had an issue with it because of that.
Well, it sounds like it's working, so that's a good thing. Now, in terms of your
It is.
employees, how many employees do you anticipate you'll hire? I understand it may be, you may grow your sales force as time goes on and business builds, but what are you anticipating at this time in terms of the numbers?
We anticipate hiring 15 employees for the site. They won't all be working at the same time, but we anticipate about 15 employees should be the case. We are looking at automating a few things. I've got phenomenal ideas of things that we're implementing now with some additional kiosks and some other new techniques that we're looking to put in that can really streamline the process. Part of this is inspired by COVID-19, but just that we can, do things to just constantly enhance the business, especially with the environment we're in right now. God forbid, soon we'll have some vaccines and this will be gone. But for the time being, we're definitely, focused on whatever we can do that can help. And so, and that might actually help with the manpower also, where customers can come in, they can, in the lobby, they could look at kiosks, and then from there go in and reduce their average shopping time, which is already short being a retail store, but to reduce their average shopping time at the location is, something desirable for parking availability and things. So.
And my guess is you haven't yet started the hiring process since you're anticipating opening in just shy of 2 months.
We haven't, although as I was speaking to our neighbors, one of our neighbors has introduced me to someone that her daughter actually that was working at a competitor, and I had discussed that we would sit down with her to extend a job to her, but that was the only person so far. So formally, no, we haven't, but in the crossfires, there was I couldn't help but pick up an applicant.
And all of your employees will have occupational licenses from the state?
They will. They do now for our other businesses, our other stores, and they certainly will, for this business.
You indicated that your employees complete the responsible vendor training. You also mentioned internal training. What does that look like? How does that work with the responsible vendor training?
Well, they do the responsible vendor training where our focus is definitely on compliance, making sure that that they're handling people properly for, the limitation on quantities that they can purchase, viewing customers from no one is under the influence that's coming into the facility, making sure that no customers are going into limited access areas or any area where is not designated for customer access or use. Policies pertaining to if the customer has children or if there's any kind of discrepancy that might take place, proper utilization of FlowHub, the metric system, how the customers would be handling if a customer was to, cause a disturbance, how they're escalating customer service procedures, if there's any quality concerns with the product, if there's any customer returning a product for any reason, requesting a refund, if it was escalating for just customer service, purposes, they didn't get the proper service that they thought they would need. We really cover, I think, every area that is essential to ensure that people know what they're doing, that they're compliant, and that they know how to complete the point of sale properly, but also not cause any inventory issues for us, that they understand that, the whole process of what happens when we get flour in, when we package the product, when we label the product, all the requirements and compliance aspects of the label. So we just want all eyes essentially that's in a QA quality assurance standpoint. So we don't have just one person that ensures everything is compliant or is, passing quality control. We train all of our employees to watch for the same metrics that a manager would watch for to keep our standards up. And so that we definitely put a lot of emphasis on ensuring that compliance is never an issue. And that's the only way I'll be able to sleep well at night, to be honest with you, is if I know that's happening.
Sure. So what if I've looked through your operations manual, which is quite lengthy and thorough, which is appreciated. What action would you take, would your overseeing manager take in the event an employee does violate a provision of the, local or state laws relating to retail sales?
Well, I'll give you an example. I had one of our employees get a poster made that had a connotation of marijuana in it. And, and he had done this without checking with anybody initially when he had the poster made. But before he put the poster up, he had ran it by, because that's our one of our processes. Anything that has our branding or anything that is a sign or a poster or any kind of marketing has to be pre-approved. And the having marijuana leaves on a poster like that is against our regulations, our own internal regulations, when especially when it's not allowed by the city. And so that kind of situation, we pulled the employee aside. We pulled up the ordinance that showed, hey, look, it says right here that this is not allowed because of that. And then we put out a summary message to all of the employees on a platform that we use called Slack, which is what sort of organizes every issue that ever takes place. And so we have periodic meetings and sort of a compiled list of every concern or issue that have ever taken place historically. Each new person that's hired is exposed to that ever running list of anything that ever crossed their mind of being a concern or a discrepancy within the company. And so we ensure that those issues never happen a second time. We, as business people, we feel the pain one time, and we certainly don't want to feel it a second time. But most importantly than just business, we don't want to have any kind of compliance infraction. So we sat down with the employee. We have a write-up, so we have it documented and it's in their file. Maybe it's not disciplinary where they're, being sent home if they didn't do anything, if they just did something like this. But I just, that was the only example that's come to mind right off the bat here that where, there was any kind of concern recently of a compliance issue, and we sat that employee down and showed them, look, this is the way that it needs to be. You need to, check with us if you ever have any issue. So.
Okay. Thank you. My understanding is you're not going to be running the store. You're not going to be overseeing the day-to-day operations of the store, will you?
Not day to day. At some point, no. I'll be having management hired, and we have a few candidates from our other stores that can come over temporarily. And as Trevor said, we're bringing people from the Commerce City market to our other stores for a few periods of, like a few days here and there at a time for training. Netherlands not too far, and so it kind of works out well for us to just bring them up to Netherlands for a few days to be able to acclimate those employees. But no, I would be hiring well-experienced people. I look for people that have been in the industry several years. So we just hired another manager. Actually, I'm opening a store in Craig, the city of Craig, a couple hours north of Parachute in the next week and a half, 2 weeks. And so we just brought on a little extra management in that capacity, and they're both working out fantastic. Both, many years in the industry. And, but we still put those, even those high-end people that have many years in the business, we put them all through training as if they know nothing. And they appreciate it, but maybe it's excessive. But we want to be able to show, if we're audited at any time, our extensive procedures that we put all of our employees through. And even if their resume looks strong and they've been through everything and they've been doing this since the dawn of time, everybody goes through the whole training process.
Okay. All right, that's helpful. Thank you. I think the other questions that I have, you've already addressed, or your attorney has. Mr. McCarvey, do you have any other questions of your client before I turn this over to Mr. Swan?
No. I think you covered everything pretty well, so we'll stand on the record.
All right, thank you. Mr. Swan.
Thanks, Your Honor. I do have a few questions here for mostly Mr. Diet, if that's all right with you, sir. So thanks for all of your testimony and for providing the operations manual, the store plan summary, the odor mitigation plan, the security plan, all that stuff. I found to be very thorough and generally above and beyond what I received from other applicants who I've handled hearings for in the past. So I can tell that you have a strong attention to detail, and that you're generally on top of things when it comes to the operational side. I still have a few questions kind of about the day-to-day operation of your business and sort of how you expect to be involved going forward. You, sir, so you're listed as the owner in the application, but there's Mr. Mark Majasic, as I understand, will be the kind of day-to-day business manager, I guess you'd call him, or he's listed as the main business contact person. Could you just talk about his role in the business and what it will be going forward?
Yep. So, I hired Mark 3 years ago. He's been running the Parachute store ever since. The proof is sort of in the pudding with this guy because he's, 4.7 stars on Google, just phenomenal results throughout the state. We were voted best dispensary design in the U.S. by Leaf Buyer, I believe it was. And Weed Maps, I think, had voted us top in Colorado too. So we're doing well, and it was all under his management. That's why I bring it up, because he's done a great job over 3 years. I've put him through, thick and thin. And when you have good managers like this, over the years, you can see who's solid, who isn't. He works after hours. He works on the weekends if he needs to. He'll respond at midnight if there's ever a concern. I mean, these are people that you want, loyal people like that. And, I take good care of him, and he's been watching over the business for 3 years. And so he actually used to own a store himself in Gunnison prior to working for me. Gunnison is, I would say, one of the worst markets in the state as far as profitability, but he knows his stuff well. I mean, the guy is very, very good, knows the compliance just, like the back of his hand. And so he's done a great job for 3 years with keeping the business compliant and enforcing our, operational procedures properly. Just a brief overview of Mark.
So are you going to be moving him over from Parachute then? Is that how it's going to work?
He's going to be overseeing the operations in some capacities remotely. And when he comes to Denver, he does come to Denver periodically. He comes to Denver, pays our taxes himself from the Parachute store. So he's in and out of Denver somewhat frequently. And so he is going to help with training additional management members that we have on board, which is a process that we've just had to streamline and recently have fine tune that as we have, we've become a chain essentially. And so he's been doing a good job with sitting down with HR. We recently hired our human resources manager who is based in Denver herself. Her name is Catherine Halber, and she's based in Denver. And so she's actually been training through marijuana procedures herself, even though she only was essentially hired and has experience for human resources. But she's a very intelligent woman, and she's doing just a great job so far over the last several months that we've hired her. But so we do have some presence in the Denver area, plus Mark's brother, Cody, who has also owned retail stores, and I believe he is starting a new one in Broomfield with the new regulations that have come out. And Cody helps us, and he's working on our Craig store right now. He worked on helping our Netherlands store, and so we've got a good, family-oriented team on board. That Cody lives in Broomfield, like I said, so we've got a local presence as well, and we tend to hire additional management that have, good experience, good knowledge as a base for us to build on, and they can see how we do things a little bit differently at the Kind Castle from there. But hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah.
Happy to answer that further if you like.
Just to follow up briefly a little bit on that. So I guess what my concern would be is, most of the time these applicants will have sort of like a day-to-day operations manager who's going to be present at the licensed premises, on a more recurring basis, and is somebody who lives in the area. And that individual is usually kind of identified to some degree at the time we have this hearing. And from what I understand, it seems as though you all still are looking to hire that type of individual. Is that a fair assessment?
So yeah, that's essentially right. But I've created a ZipRecruiter account months ago, and I've been compiling the top. I search for marijuana in there. You can find great resumes that way. Frankly, I search for dispensary manager in there, and I've compiled about a dozen that have been many years in the business. Now, I haven't started the formal hiring process, as I mentioned earlier, but I have compiled many good quality applicants. I've done this in, other markets too, where we have some upcoming stores like Glenwood Springs, for example, where I have 5 or 6 that I found in the Glenwood Springs market. But so I have those applicants ready to rock. And we just, you can't really promise people jobs when it's contingent on a licensing hearing and also, understand that, I've done this in markets like Glenwood Springs or the town of Silt that are very much against marijuana. And so you don't know what percentage chance you have in, in getting these approved, or if there's a lot of opposition. Now in Commerce City, there's been no opposition, which is nice. And there's been, at least formally, that have come out. But yeah, I mean, we don't promise people jobs or have them quit or anything, or do that until after it's approved. But, I've hired thousands of people in my life, trained many managers, and it's not a difficult thing for us, especially when we have the whole process kind of, nicely laid out and organized. And so it won't be an issue for us to find people. And I didn't even put out an ad. That was just checking the resume search. I found many, many good applicants. So we will certainly pick some good people right after. And what I do is I go heavy on managements to where I've got a qualified manager sitting in every group of lead bud tenders that I have on board. And most people don't do that, but I do that because I want to have an excess of people that are able to run that store. And so I actually bring people in. I just did it recently. I put out ads for dispensary managers in a different market, and I hired them in and told them and, train them for a lead bud tender position. And we just did this. And then we can promote them from that point on, from lead into manager. And so I do that. So we really have always an excess amount of good brains on board that I could draw from if I needed to, especially with the amount of stores that we're opening up. I'm also doing one in Broomfield, and another one in the Denver somewhat area. And so we are building the Denver area to be a main part of our entire footprint across the state. It's just slightly premature. It hasn't happened yet, but that's sort of what's taking place as we speak.
So what I'm hearing then, sir, Mr. Diet, is that you and, am I saying his name right, Mr. Myasich? Is that the way to say it? Myasich?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Myasich. Mm-hmm.
You two gentlemen, so you, after the license may be conditionally approved, that's what happens today. So you guys are going to then go out and hire a bunch of employees, including somebody who's going to serve kind of as like a store manager or whatever. And then you and or Mr. Myasich are going to yourselves kind of hands-on train the employees and train your sort of store manager operator on site, specifically with respect to this facility. Because I guess I just want to confirm that's what's happening, because I'm pretty impressed with your presentation and your operations manual, and you know what you're doing and you're qualified. I just want to make sure that sort of trickles down to the other personnel that you're going to have involved in your operation. So I just, if you could just answer yes or no, will you be directly involved in the hiring and training of, kind of your startup staff on site at this specific facility?
Yes. And not only will I be involved, I have a policy that they don't hire anyone without me giving the final okay on it, because I'm that picky about who we bring on board to make sure the spirit's there, that they're going to take care of the customer properly, above and beyond compliance and everything that we're already going to be looking for. I just want to have good people that are going to work hard and always put the customer first. And so that's absolutely. I'm involved in that. And also Cody Myasich, Mark's brother, is involved also in helping. But yes, to answer your question, absolutely.
Thanks for that, sir. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Who's Alicia Coakley? Alicia.
Oh, she was a former assistant manager of the Parachute store.
Okay. I'm curious because she's listed as number 2 in your calling sequence for the event that the security system is tripped, and I was just wondering what
that needs to be updated.
Okay.
Yeah, so by the time, because we're growing so fast, and every industry, there's always somebody that likes to say, "Oh, we're the fastest growing in the industry." Well, I think we're almost able to say that, but since that application has been submitted, that the plans have actually changed. We've brought on many phenomenal people since then. And, you know, we have people now lined up in the Commerce City area that we won't need to bring Alicia into the Commerce store. But at the time of the application, she was next in line. That's correct.
Could you, sir, I'd ask, and this is obviously subject to the authority agreeing with me, could you please resubmit a security plan narrative just with the correct people and the correct information? Because
sure,
that stuff is important, and you know, precious seconds can tick away. You know, if somebody is being called on the priority list who isn't otherwise involved with or really directly responsible for the business. So that's one thing I'll be asking, is that you just make sure that your security plan narrative is accurate and make whatever changes you need to make to that as a condition of the license.
Perfect. And I'll also send you any additional changes in the future beyond the updated, you know, narrative that you just asked for. And so if there's ever any additional key management, you know, members that come on board, we'll add those additional, you know, over time too.
And I think that's required. I think you're required to
right
that information with the state, with our records as well. So I would hope so.
Right.
Going forward. Kind of went through a lot there. You know, I think that's all I've got for now. Normally I ask a lot of questions about you know, odor mitigation and security, but it's nice to have these written plans, because then I can kind of look at them and a lot of my questions get answered on the front end. So I appreciate that. I don't think I have any further questions at this time.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Swan.
Thank you.
Tiffany, is anyone, any party on who is in the designated neighborhood who's interested in being heard? I don't see anyone.
I'm seeing none.
Okay. All right. So I'll note that there's no one, no party in interest wishing to be heard in favor of or against the application. Mr. McCarvey, do you have a brief closing argument, sir?
Yes. Just to touch on the, there's a lot of questions asked about how management and everything will go. And obviously John knows it better than me, but my understanding is basically what will happen is Mark is kind of like a general manager, and Mr. Myasich has been around basically getting the stores open. He kind of knows construction and knows how to set the security things up. So he will be on site to get the store open. And then once we hire a manager, they will be overseen by John and Mark for the first few weeks, first months of operations until they get their feet wet. And once they do, then, we'll allow them to operate the store. But that's kind of how, in a perfect world, that's how it would go, is we kind of have people come out from the stores that we do have, and they are there to oversee, help with any questions, that kind of stuff, in addition to training the people. So I would just note that I do believe, there is a demand in the neighborhood in the city of Commerce City as well as the surrounding areas. This is a heavily populated area. We're on the border of Denver and Commerce City. Marijuana sales continue to, set new records each year. And as far as I know, all the stores that have been licensed thus far in Commerce City are still in business. So I do believe that shows a demand, and that the neighborhood still has a demand for the product. As far as the requirements, the zoning and everything else has been addressed and is in compliance with the city's municipal code requirements. As far as the building permit we discussed, there's no structural changes or anything that would require that, just some finish work. So as far as the application itself, I would submit to the hearing officer and to the city that all the material parts of that are in compliance. All the fees have been paid. We've demonstrated that the applicant knows how to run stores, and that if they are granted a license, they will be able to open and they will be able to operate this store as they have other stores in compliance with the rules. and hopefully they can blend in and become another contributing business in the area. And overall, that's our goal. It doesn't work if, both the city and all their surrounding businesses, as well as our business, don't all benefit. So hopefully from the increased traffic, maybe some of the other businesses in the area there will also pick up a customer or two. But ultimately, we are capable. Mr. Diet's background has been approved and has shown that he has good moral character. The requirements of the application have been met, and I would submit to the city and to the hearing officer that we are a qualified candidate and that we would argue that the application should be granted.
Thank you, Mr. McGarvey. Mr. Swan, brief closing.
Sure. So obviously, Commerce City Revised Municipal Code 8-2203, subsection C specifically governs the criteria for approval of these types of licenses, retail marijuana licenses, and what the hearing officer will be finding today is whether the applicant has met its burden of proving that all qualifications for licensure have been satisfied, and then also that the residents of the affected neighborhood desire the business, the applicant is fit to hold the requested license, and that the applicant is prepared to operate the business in compliance with the requirement of state and local law. We heard testimony from Mr. Diet on all of these criteria, as well as Ms. Garrettson, and briefly just going through these kind of one by one here. As far as whether the residents of the affected neighborhood desire the business, we heard testimony and saw evidence from Ms. Garrettson that 41% of the individuals, often mostly business owners and managers in the area, 41% opposition in a petition is a little bit high. I would kind of like to see that number go down a little bit, but at the same time, this is a public hearing and we have not had any members from the public sign up to testify in opposition. So I guess the city is satisfied on that point. I'd like to see, Mr. Diet, do what he can to be a good neighbor going forward. And, based on the evidence, the application packet that I've seen, I think that he will do that, but minor concern there, nothing that I would argue warrants denial of the application. As to whether the applicant is fit to hold the license that is being applied for, Mr. Diet's background check came out pretty much squeaky clean. I'm very impressed with, his qualifications, his experience in the industry. Mr. Diet's previously, been involved in the operation of a store out in Parachute, I believe he said, for the last 3 years, and they haven't had any violations. That's something that I always look for and I like to see. I did notice with Mr. Mayasic's background check, there were a couple past criminal incidents in the last, 10 to 15 years or so, nothing that would necessarily warrant, his disqualification under the law as being able to hold this license type in the city of Commerce City, but some minor concerns there. Again, nothing disqualifying, and Mr. Diet, who is the 100% majority owner, his background check was clean. So I would say that the applicant is fit to hold the license, both with respect to moral character and kind of experience and knowledge of the proposed business operations in the industry. And lastly, the third criteria that the authority is going to make a finding on today is whether the applicant is prepared to operate the business in compliance with state and local law. I'm very impressed with Mr. Diet's presentation. Again, he's not a newbie to the industry. He's gone above and beyond with respect to his operations manual and his plan summary and his security plan, his odor mitigation plan. I'm not going to go through specifics in the sake of time, but I saw an attention to detail that I think goes above and beyond what I've seen from other similarly situated applicants in the industry. So, I'm pretty impressed with Mr. Diet's knowledge of the Colorado state and local regulatory structure. And given what I heard about kind of how he's going to hire and train, some more employees to manage this particular location locally, I'm sure that, he will pass down his knowledge, his attention to detail to those individuals that he ends up hiring. It sounds like he's undertaking a pretty thorough search for qualified applicants. So I would support the authority's issuance of the retail marijuana license today for those reasons. And I think that's all I've got.
All right, thank you, Mr. Swan. All right, I'm gonna close the public hearing, and I'll go ahead and state my findings in my order. I will also issue written findings. Those will be distributed to the parties by the secretary to the authority. This matter comes before the authority on November 18th, and then today, November 23rd, 2020. The authority finds that the evidence presented today, together with the submissions on the secretary's official file, which has been entered into the record, support the following findings. Based on the petition results, the adult inhabitants of the neighborhood signing desire the issuance of the license. I also note that it's 59% in favor, 41 opposed. Ideally, it would be a little bit higher. This hearing was posted for November 18th. There was one person who appeared. We only opened the public hearing. We didn't take any testimony on that date. The secretary, just for the record, did actually speak with him in person and provided him information on how he could appear today. He indicated he might submit something in writing. He hasn't done that. On the city's website and the agenda for the hearing today was the information on how to appear at the hearing virtually today, and no one has appeared. So I am making the finding based on the survey results. The number and type of marijuana businesses located in or near the neighborhood do not preclude the issuance of the license. Other statutory and ordinance requirements have been met, and the applicant is qualified to conduct the type of business proposed. He's the applicant's of good moral character. So I will approve the granting of the license on the following conditions. Satisfactory inspection by the police department to determine compliance with the diagram submitted with the application. In particular, I want to make sure with an inspection that the security system is in place as is indicated on the diagram, and that the secure doors are in fact secure as indicated as well. So at any point the applicant is ready for that inspection, you can contact the secretary, Tiffany, and she can make those arrangements. Second qualification is satisfactory inspection by the building and fire department to determine compliance with respective codes, specifically 414 and 508.4 of the 2009 International Building Code, as amended by section 5-4101 of the Commerce City Code, and 2701.1 of the 2009 International Fire Code, as amended by section 5-41001 of the Commerce City Code. That inspection will happen before opening of the business, which is anticipated based on the testimony of Mr. Diet around mid to early January. The final condition would be submitting an updated security plan, updating the names, numbers listed on the priority list in the event there is a security issue and the police department or others have the need to contact the license holder. Once a license is issued, the licensee shall comply with the state marijuana code rules, regulations, and all municipal ordinances, rules, and regulations, including but not limited to timely reports as required by section 8-2307 of the Commerce City Code regarding criminal activity, changes in financial interest, corporate structure, business manager, modifications to the premises, and administrative holds and assurances of compliance, or any other disciplinary actions. In addition, the licensee is expected to comply specifically with section 44-10-601 of the Colorado Revised Statutes, and that's specifically the retail marijuana store license rules and definitions. Any questions before we close the hearing?
I was going to ask that the resubmittal of an updated security plan be part of the conditions to licensure, but you already caught it.
Yeah, and so-
I appreciate it.
Okay, yep, absolutely. Yeah, so the license won't be issued until we have that update and those 2 inspections have occurred. So Ms. McGarvey, you can just notify Tiffany as to when you expect your client will be ready for those inspections. We'll get that rolling and then we can go ahead and issue the license. All right.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. If there's nothing further, thank you, Mr. Diet, for your thorough application, all the information you provided. Good luck to you, sir, with the business.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and close the hearing. And Tiffany, I'll just go ahead and get you that order to go ahead and distribute. All right,
Excellent.
thanks, folks.
Thank you.
Great. Sounds good. Thank you, everybody.
Stay
All right,
safe.
you as well.
Best of luck.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone. We appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right.
All right, let's give it a look, Tim. Wow. No, that didn't work.
All right, so we are not recording anymore, looks like. Okay, do you guys need anything else from me?
No, I think I'm good. I've got like 2 windows open right now.
Yes, you
Weird.
do.
Yeah, my
Mhm.
like thing, my Zoom on my iPad never let me in, which was really. So that's why I had to do 2 windows up, but it actually worked, and everybody